everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know my name, I'm Angelica and this is my booktube channel, so welcome. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already because I make videos about books and reading and writing as it says on the banner thing, but I also do vlogs and lists and discussion videos, collabs, doing more collabs now, so that's fun. I'd love to have you on board. Today we're going to talk about what it's like being an English major, and I want to do this in the format of a pros and cons list because I always like the idea of pros and cons lists. I know that they're not actually helpful in making decisions, but I kind of want to use that format because I think that ultimately picking a major should be based on what you love doing. So if you love reading, if you love writing, if you love analyzing, critiquing, investigating, then you'll love being an English major or studying English. John Green once said that he basically went to college and took a bunch of classes and his department or his advisor was like, you need to pick a major. And he was like, ugh. And they were like, you have the most classes in history and English. And he was like, can I just major in those? So I think that's the best way of going about picking a major if you're in that position right now, if you need to make that decision. But I think it'll still be enjoyable to go through and tell you guys my personal experience of being an English major. I know that this is not everyone's experience. Obviously, different departments are going to have different classes and different requirements and so forth and so on. But these are the pros and cons of my English major experience. What are the cons? Let's start with the negatives. There are none. Just kidding. In general, I loved my major. I loved the classes that I took and I loved doing the work for it, but of course there are hard patches. So I did not like taking survey courses. Survey courses are when you take a whole bunch of stuff in a specific time frame and it's just kind of like shoved at you and you have to like read a lot in a short span of time. I mean, you always had to read a lot in a short span of time. So you hopped from like maybe Chaucer to the Fairy Queen to what was that guy? The guy with the dragon. Oh, what's his name? Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Dragon? There's no dragon. That kind of area was not my favorite. So having to take a survey course in that was a drag. That was British survey, and then we took an American survey. And then the American survey, the first few things that we read, the point was that people at that time wanted real stories, so kind of like memoir type things or journals. We read a lot of journals of people who got captured by Indians or Native Americans, and lots of pastors were getting really riled up about their American dream of starting over and having their own colony to make God great again. Sorry. The stuff that we read from the perspective of people of color in early America was really interesting. So I did enjoy that. It was a little dry and the language was a little, but besides that, I think it just was interesting to read. But then once we got past that, I was like super pumped for reading Emerson. It was amazing. I also really enjoyed reading about Ben Franklin. I know this is supposed to be the cons list. Anyway, you may be required to read things that you don't want to read. That is a con. Another con that I found was it was difficult for me to take a lot of courses at the same time because I was so cognizant of the fact that I had a lot of reading to do and I'm not a fast reader. So I wanted to really dedicate time to all of my homework, and in order to do that and get enough sleep and have something of a social life and work, I didn't take a lot of courses. I took the minimum +1 per semester so that I could stay on top of my reading. And this was frustrating to me because I went to a liberal arts college where I could pretty much take any class I wanted as long as I was, you know, staying on course with fulfilling all of my requirements. And there were so many appetizing courses available and I couldn't take all of them. For example, I would have loved to take more history courses, political science courses, theater courses, philosophy courses, art, music. There were so many things that were technically available to me that I just could not do. So that was a bummer. Another con that I think is really common, and not necessarily was the case for me, but sort of, I'll explain, is that people are afraid that they'll hate reading after they finish their degree, and that during their degree they'll build up all this resentment towards books and words and just get really frustrated and hate reading. And that's not the case for me. I still love to read, obviously. I have this channel. But, and this started before I went to college, this huge sabbatical, I guess that's the word we can use here, in pleasure reading. I think I was an avid reader like from since, even before I could read by myself, my mom read to me every night and that sort of thing. And then up until middle school, I read some in high school, but not as much. And then so high school through college, I just didn't read like for myself. Maybe I read occasionally, but like 1 or 2 books a year, not as much as I read now. Because you're reading so much for school, I didn't dislike all the reading that I was doing. I generally enjoy the reading that I was doing, but it took away from that personal reading time. And I know not everyone's the same. For example, Reagan at Peru's Project is in college and she reads loads of books, like even during exam time, which is like amazing to me. You might be the type of person who's able to set aside time and prioritize that personal reading time in addition to all the other things that you need to do. It's up to you, it's your time management, whatever. I didn't prioritize that, and it took me so long to realize that I could set aside that time for myself. And it wasn't until I was a senior, I had been watching booktube videos that previous summer, and I started buying books again. I started looking at reviews. That's when I really started getting into booktube, and I knew that it wasn't possible to fully commit to all the books that I wanted to read because I was still in the throes of like senior chaos, whatever. But I did read, what was it? Not Clockwork Angels, the Cassandra Clare books. You know what I'm talking about, because my friend Shannon let me borrow them, and they are not well written books. They're very enjoyable, but it was just like something so freeing about being able to just, after a long day, coming back to bed and being like, you know what, I've finished my homework for today, I'm just going to lie in bed and read this. And it was awesome. So that was really freeing and cool. Yeah, in summary, one of the cons for me was not being able to prioritize reading, personal reading, for a long time. I did blame the English major for a while for the fact that I wasn't doing personal reading, and I kept postponing doing more personal reading until I graduated, and then that summer was insane. I just read so much, and it was amazing. Okay, let's move on to the pros. What are the pros of being an English major? Or what were my specific experience pros of being an English major? You get to read for class, for homework. You get to read, and then you get to write about it, and then you get to talk about it with people in class. What's not to love? I love discussing books, and I love being in a setting where there's someone who knows more about the contextual background information about a book, and then opens doors for you in your mind. I know this sounds cliche, about a story that you are already in love with, and just laying the groundwork for a whole new contextual understanding of the world that you live in, and time traveling and geographical travel through the page, and all of this stuff is happening where you're building a better, broader understanding of the world through having mad awesome times in class, in school. There was this one specific professor who showed me that I wasn't alone, because I have a circular way of thinking, and I'm always making long stretches in connections to things. I've always thought a certain way, when someone's having a conversation, it'll relate to this thing that I've read, which also relates back to this thing, and unless you have an essay explaining how those things are connected. Basically, throughout my life, when I have conversations with people, or when I'm watching films or reading books or something, they relate to other things, and it's how I build my contextual framework for my understanding of the world. And when I was in classes with this one professor, she would do, let's say, a presentation on artwork, and the rest of the class would be like, why are we studying this art? What does that have to do with the book that we're reading? And I mean, to be fair, I was too. But then, a couple of classes later, it would all come together, and it was this sudden, whoom, of this is why. And it's, that, like, those specific moments, the whole entire major was worth it for those particular moments where everything falls into place and you just get it, and it makes you want to cry or sing because you just feel really connected to everything. The whole just experience of being in a classroom with someone who understands the way that you think and connects to you through books is awesome. And I think that is what I miss most about being in school, is those moments in class when, I don't know, you just feel, you don't feel alone, because everyone, and not everyone, but a lot of people in that class get it, and you all get it, and you're sharing that moment together. Like, that is so special. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I joined BookTube, was to connect to people through books. It just means so much to me. It's like in Pride and Prejudice when Lizzie and Mr. Darcy finally like come together and understand that they want to be together, and then Jane Austen like doesn't tell you exactly what they say to each other because that's their private little moment, and some things just can't be articulated. And that's how I feel about this specific thing that I'm trying to tell you right now, is like, they're just moments that are so meaningful, but you can't there's no words to describe, like, there's no words. Which is ironic because we're studying words. So I don't know if I made like points. I don't know if this like prose section is made of points, but basically I love reading. You get to read for class. I love talking to people about books and feeling connected in a classroom. And I feel like I should have a third point. You're super smart at the end of it. It is isolating in some ways to have specific things that people may think are dead are so meaningful. For example, it's gonna be very rare in your life when the rape of the lock is gonna come up and people are gonna be like, yeah man, the rape of the lock. You know, like, that's not a thing that's really gonna happen, probably. But there will be moments in your life where nothing but the rape of the lock will be able to describe a certain situation, and you will personally feel gratification for understanding that deeper level of something. I think that's magical, being able to time travel. You are time traveling, essentially, when you are connected to words that were written like long before you were born, or just with an author that's still alive. I mean, you get it. You get it when you are part of a fan base and you connect to all those people who love the same book as you and who get it. This is a very rambly video. This may be the most rambly I've ever gotten while recording a video for YouTube. Becoming an English major lays the groundwork for having a very wide cultural context in your life for the rest of your life. And the more you read and the more you feel connected to words that were written before you were born, like way far away ago, like a couple of years ago, right now, like, you are going to see the world through another lens, and that's going to broaden your perspective, and you will be able to have more compassion for people who are different from you, to people who've had different experiences than you, but you'll also be able to relate your experience to stories that are timeless, and you will basically become infinite in those moments. And that is crazy. That's magic. And that is why you should all become English majors if you want. I wish that I could be an English major forever, but I also have this really difficult time because I want to live in the real world, and I love academia, #Ravenclaw, but I also want to like make things and go out and do the things, and I feel like I could do that in academia, but it's also like you're in this alternate universe when you are at school, because you are seeing everything from the outside, like in the world, through this particular lens of your of being in an academic setting. Anyway, that's a discussion for another video. But I loved being an English major very much, and even the cons were positives in a lot of ways. And if you connected to any of the things that I was saying, then you should probably like be an English major. Like, if you are thinking about what major you should do, please follow your heart. Or if you've already graduated and you get what I'm saying, please comment below if you're an English major and you disagree with some of these things, or if you just have comments leave them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and if you liked this kind of video, let me know. I'll make more of them, and I hope you guys have a great day. Subscribe, and talk to you soon. Bye!